Hussein talked about the building design competition at the end of 2000, and at the time I recall thinking to myself when Renzo Piano Building Workshop had won the competition, what a building it was, and how much I would really like to work on that project. A few months later, Gensler competed for and got the interiors, and I've been working on the project since that time. When we think about sustainable design with interior architecture, there's a number of different things that we can consider. For this project, as Hussein mentioned earlier, it was a matter of trying to create a great workplace for the people at the times. And it's also about incorporating a couple of building technologies that also came with the project. So the Times had already made a decision to include underfloor air, and they had some notion about daylighting. And those are the technologies primarily that we'll talk about. And it's really been about the interplay of the interior architecture and those technologies, integrating them, and in fact, how they are largely invisible. This is a view of the building looking at the newsroom on 40th Street. And you can see, as was talked about earlier, the newsroom is close to the street. It's largely visible. And those ideas really supported the newspaper's mission of reporting. We were hired at the beginning of the project with the base building team, and we had a lot of opportunity to work with them. And because we had that opportunity, a lot of consultation and advice that we provided got baked into the project, and it benefited not only what we were trying to do on the interior, but later it would benefit some of the technology, and it also complemented building design. Some of the things that we were able to do was to advise about the depth of the dimensions from the core to the perimeter, the corner spacing. With the base building team, we established a planning module at 5 feet. We also advised about the placement of the mullions on the north and the south side to improve our flexibility and planning efficiency. And we also had the opportunity to advise about the opening in the ceramic rods in the exterior of the building to optimize the view from both seated and standing positions. And the interior concept, similar to the base building design concept, was about dematerializing, and that would go from the direction of the core, which is highlighted here in red, to the perimeter. Our layout strategy was to maximize the daylight and views on the interior. So as you can see here, all of our solid partitions are actually those that are perpendicular to the curtain wall. So we never obstructed either the daylight or the views. And that visibility actually began upon arrival on the floor. So when you get off at the elevator lobby, sometimes we don't have built space at either end of the elevator lobby. In most instances we do. It's usually a meeting room, and that meeting room has transparent partitions on either side, so we never interrupt that view. And the same idea was carried out in the vertical axis, so we start with the dark ground plane, and as you move up through the space, the heights diminish and the finishes get lighter towards the white ceiling. The ceiling design followed the 5-foot module. The ceiling is a 5-foot format, at the center of which is a 6-inch wide light fixture. Oops. And at the center of that 6-inch wide light fixture is a 6-inch square, which allowed for the placement of devices, but more importantly for us, it allowed the placement of partitions when they were perpendicular to the light fixtures. All of the light fixtures in the building run east-west, and this lighting scheme is used on all floors throughout the time space. The other thing that this will allow is in the future, if there's a need for reconfiguration, you can easily move the walls, and there's no need to modify either the ceiling or the lighting. Oftentimes when we think about sustainable design with the interior, we're considering materials. We think about materials that have high recycled content or are certified. And we certainly have a fair amount of recycled content in the metal and glass that we're using. Our industry has also responded in that most of our ceiling and carpet manufacturers have recycling programs. But the consideration of materials here was really about supporting some of the building technology. On the left there, we have a typical floor outlet for an underfloor air system. And our engineers had advised us that in large meeting spaces, we would need such a quantity of these that it would be awkward in the room to step around and avoid them. And also was the question of who would be responsible for adjusting those. Because there was a lot of research and some visits that we made to different installations with this technology prior in the United States and in Europe. In one of those installations, the team had seen an unusual method of air delivery, and actually it came through the carpeting. So they took that idea back to the team here, and we were able to help source and develop perforated carpet so that in our large meeting rooms, we won't have these air diffusers, and the air will flow through and actually be visible. So in the center there, you can see standard carpet tile backing and an image of what this perforated carpet tile will look like. And then just another idea with a different material, the shade fabric. Based on our prior experience, we had advised the team that we should probably have a darker fabric on the interior face. So we recommended a gray fabric, and the reason we had said that is we have this beautiful transparent building. When the shades are down, we wanted to still be able to see out, and our experience had showed us that the darker fabric allowed that. We had placed that in a mock-up, and it turned out that was the case. We did not obstruct views when the shades were down. You could look out fairly well. What we learned is that on overcast days, when there was a lot of glare outside and the shades came down, the interior environment became very gloomy. So we've now reversed that thinking, and we have a lighter white shade fabric facing the interior. And then just to kind of summarize some of these points, we're going to talk about very complex systems, underfloor air and lighting controls. And those are terrific things to include in a project like this, but also the small gestures add up and count. What I was saying about the shade fabric, that's kind of a no-cost thing to do, and yet it enhances the quality of the space. Another thing that can be considered sustainable is the way we've used space. We've used it efficiently. Less space takes less energy, and also the kind of flexibility that we've built into the space allows for flexible use on day one, but also in the future with reconfigurations. Less resources will be consumed to make any kinds of changes. And I just wanted to end on one point. Even though we have a lot of this technology, there was a lot of effort put into integrating it, and so that it remains invisible. So the interior design wasn't about expressing the technology, it was about incorporating that technology. It was available for the folks in the workplace, but not really expressed.